So I want to just, as we begin, I want to welcome everyone. My name is Kyle. I'm the youth pastor here, and so welcome. And welcome to those watching online who aren't in this room. We want to acknowledge that there's people watching online. And if you've just watched online and you haven't taken the step to come and meet us, there's people in this room, and so you should meet them because they're awesome, all right? And so as we begin, I want everyone to say, you can raise your right hand and say, I volunteer to be a leader for Mega Sports Camp. No one finished. All right. No, if this summer Mega Sports Camp, if you know about sports, have heard about sports, or you just love Jesus, you should be a coach for our kids. And honestly, you don't have to have the most knowledge about sports. You don't even necessarily like kids. You just might want to have them go to heaven. If that's you, we just need your help. And honestly, the statistics are staggering. For those who make a decision to follow Christ, it's very high. I can throw out a number. I don't know what it is exactly, but I think it's in the 80s that for people who come to know Jesus, it's between the ages of 0 and 18. And so I challenge you, make a difference in a student's life, in a kid's life, and step up. We need your help. And so what I'm asking you to do is to be the church. And so if you've made Jesus Christ the Lord of your life, be the church, all right? Yeah, so stepped on toes already. That's a good way to start, right? So I'm excited. Pastor Kim is out of town, Pastor Kim and Jenny, and so they asked if I would share, and so I was like, absolutely. Before today, let me go back. Last week I was at church, but then the last 4 weeks, 2 weeks on that, I was on sabbatical, and the 2 weeks previous to that, I was actually speaking up in Bloomer. So it's like, I'm like looking at faces, I'm like, hey, everybody, it's me, I'm alive, I'm not dead. So super excited. Anybody like the grocery store? Yeah, there's a few of you. Yeah, growing up, I never really liked the grocery store. I kind of grew up in a smaller town, and so when my mom and I would go to the grocery store, it would be like, yeah, we're going to pick up some milk and eggs, and then you'd always run into somebody there, and it'd be like, so then what should be like a 5-minute errand turns into like an hour-and-a-half conversation, and so I just have this disdain for grocery stores. And so I was at the grocery store one day, and I was just, filling up the cart with a bunch of gluten, and I love it. I know I shouldn't, but I do. I'm just going to be pretty real. I love gluten a lot. So I was just filling up my grocery cart with as much stuff and sugar and pasteurized things as I could, and I had one of those weird. Anybody have a weird encounter at the grocery store? Yeah, they happen. And this old grandma looks at me with this face, and I'm like, what's going on? She walks up to me and goes, are you my Johnny? And I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm really not. And so she's like, and I'm like, that was weird. And so I go into the freezer section, and she's following me around the store, and I'm like, and she asked me again, are you my Johnny? And I'm like, no, I'm really not. And it happens 2 more times, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm probably I'm zooming through the grocery store, trying to get away from this grandma. And I'm finally checking out, and she's right behind me, and she goes, just looking at me you're my Johnny. And I'm like, I'm really not my Johnny. I'm checking out as quickly as I can. She's following me out, and it's getting super weird. And then at one point, literally, I don't know how she did it, but she got a hold of my leg and is tugging on it. And it's like, you're my Johnny. And she starts pulling on my leg, just like what I'm doing to you guys right now. There's a joke. Gotcha. And I'm segueing that into this thought. I've lost all your trust right now. I'm sorry. And you're like, I can't believe anything he says. But that's kind of the idea is today we're going to be talking about laying hold of, to embrace. And so I thought this would be a fun way to segue into this. I looked up, I enjoy the etymology. I like looking up and finding out like where words come from. And the word embrace actually comes from an old French word in like the 15th century. And it's embrasser, whatever. And it means to clasp in the arms, enclose, covet, handle, to cope with. The noun version literally means to hug. And as we continue on this morning, I'm wondering if you're like me, what are the things that we're embracing? What are the things that we're laying hold of? Because whatever gets our time, whatever gets our energy, our mental energy, our physical energy, our emotional energy, whatever gets our resources, whatever gets our worry, whatever gets our stress, that's the thing that ultimately gets our heart. And whatever has our heart has our actions. And whatever has our actions has our movement towards it. And so this morning we're going to kind of look at this, and we're going to kind of navigate this idea of what are we laying hold of? What are we embracing? What are we hugging? And so let's just start with a word of prayer, because I don't want to preach and just have it be me, because my words are definitely not going to change hearts. So it needs to be Jesus. God, I need you to move. Lord, there's people in this room who need you. Father, there are people who are far from God who need to respond to you today. There are people who are close to you who need to respond to you today. Lord, there's people in this room who need a touch from you. There's people in this room who need a word of encouragement that lets them know that you see them, God. In the midst of a sea of faces, you know their name. You know every 13 trillion cells that are in their body. You know each one and what it does. And so, God, there's people in this room who need to know that. And Father, as we continue this morning, Father, help us to embrace the thing that's going to give us life. In your wonderful name, amen. Amen. We're going to be looking at a few verses, mainly in Genesis, but it's going to be kind of all over the place. And I'll just give you a little background. We're going to be looking at Esther's life, but specifically how Haman came into being, and just how basically Haman's battle with Israel is a continuation between the battle between Jacob and Esau. And that was last week if you were here. Pastor did an amazing job with that. And just how Esau had a son named Amalek, and Amalek became the Amalekites, and how this new nation was formed, and just how this battle became. And Haman is actually an Amalekite. And so if you haven't watched that, I'm not going to go through all the different points, but that's something you need to know today. And so if you haven't already, you can go to YouTube. It's youtube.com. You can write this down, youtube.com, and you can search Harvestime Church, and you can actually watch that message. There's a bunch of messages on there. If you haven't already, you can hit the subscribe button, and then you can smash that like button. And so that was for all the millennials in the room. And so I'm kind of funny today. I'm good. And so we're going to kind of look at Genesis 25. And then we're starting off with this thought of Jacob's trap. And last night I was Googling, kind of just getting some things ready, and I was like, what's with traps? And I never grew up hunting, like, surprisingly. Like, I've been outside a couple times, but that's about as far as I go. I love me some air conditioning, I really do. But I was looking up online about traps, and specifically mouse traps. I don't have mice, so please don't give me mice. I don't want them. But just about mouse traps and how they work. So what I found on this blog is that there's 6 mouse traps. There could be more, but 6 different types of mouse traps. There's the electric mouse trap, which you put bait on this electric mouse trap. The mouse kind of walks in, and then it finds the bait and triggers an electric, and then this mouse gets electrocuted. And I don't know why I think that's hilarious, but I do. I'm kind of morbid. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So and then the mouse is no longer with us. And that's a good thing, unless you like live mice. And then there's a second type, which is the plastic mouse trap, which replaced the old wooden mousetraps because the wooden mousetraps would break and they wouldn't always do their job. So they're a harder, more rigid plastic than wood. And so the trap works, a little bit of mess, but they're economical. And so you have the electric one, which is works incredible, a little bit more expensive, reusable, which is good. The plastic ones are reusable, but a little messy. I'm not going to go into those details. You can do your own research. And then you have the thank you, the plastic enclosed snap trap, which does all the work of the plastic snap trap, but you don't have to see it. So you just take that and just throw it away. That's my kind of thing. Then you've got the catch and release mouse trap, which I haven't quite figured out. You're like, here you go, neighbor, you can have this. I'll release it into your neighbor's house. Like, what is that for? Then you have the ultrasonic pest control, which releases an ultrasonic sound that the rodents, I guess, don't like. The person said that they've never had any luck with this. So I'm guessing don't purchase this. It might not actually work. And then there's glue traps. And the glue trap works with, like, you have a little bit of bait on there. The mouse walks onto the glue trap. The glue, then it's stuck on the glue. And then some of them actually have a vapor that causes the mouse to fall asleep. And then they fall asleep forever. And everything you wanted to know about mouse traps right there. That's terrible. But ultimately what's happening is Jacob is doing this. He's laying a trap for his brother Esau. And Jacob knows exactly what he's doing. Jacob's not innocent in this. He knows his brother's going out. And so what he's doing is he's laying the bait so his brother will come. And in Genesis 25, verse 34, it says, Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. And it says that Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. And he showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. You see, Jacob knows what he's doing. And he's literally trying to, not physically, but emotionally, behind the scenes, he's killing Esau for this birthright. And for me, I'm like, what is this birthright? What is this all about? And that's actually a really big deal. See, Esau, because he's the firstborn, has the birthright in order to be getting a double portion of the inheritance from his father. And so right there, monetarily, it's a big deal. He's getting twice the amount that Jacob is supposed to be getting. And what Jacob did is like, hey, if I got this good stew, if you come and eat my stew, I'll trade you for your birthright. And so what's happening is Esau traded this away for a bowl of stew. He traded this monetary value. And also there's some perks as well. The birthright was the natural privilege of the firstborn. Receiving the birthright, the firstborn would become the head of the family and would have charge of the family, including the family property. And so Esau, in that moment, was like, I'm so hungry, I'm going to die. What good is this birthright to me? I'm going to eat this stew. He couldn't look past the here and now. And so what he did is he ended up falling for this trap. And we think, oh, poor Esau. But Esau's not innocent in this at all. You see, like, there's 4 different verbs that he's using. He ate, he got up, he left, and he showed contempt. And contempt means the feeling that a person or a thing beneath consideration, worthless or deserving of scorn for his birthright. And so he didn't really care about it. And then we continue on. So the first thing is, you got the Jacob laid the trap, and then Jacob and Isaac. And I really went all out, and I made this really cool graphic for you. Not as good as last, but I'll take it. And the Bible tells us that Esau was a very, very hairy man, and he had very, very red hair. And so it says his arms were like, Jacob covered his arms in like animal skin. Like, how hairy are you that you have to cover your arm? Like, that's a hairy man. I don't have that ability. So, yeah, so he covered himself. Esau was a man who loved to hunt, loved to be outdoors, and so he smelled like wild game. And so Jacob was a little bit more like me. He liked the indoors. He didn't hunt. He didn't do all that stuff. And so Jacob covered himself, made himself smell like Esau. dad at this point is lost his eyesight. And so he does all this so he could steal the blessing now. And so he's taken the birthright, now he's taken the blessing. And so when Esau finds out about this, Esau is ticked. And it says that he cries out. This is the only time this is the only time in the Bible. It happens only one other time. And it actually happens when Mordecai hears that Haman is going to kill the Jews. And it says that there's a loud wail in Esther 4:1. And so you've got this Jacob, who's really not this great of a guy. And you've got Esau, who again really isn't, like, you feel like he's like being tricked right and left, but he's not that great of a guy. He threw away his birthright for some stew. And then Jacob steals the blessing from him. And you got this family dynamic stuff. It's a mess. You see, and finally we get to Jacob and the father. And Esau states, as long as my father is alive, I will not touch Jacob. But when he dies, I'll kill him. You see, Esau had a love, had a respect for his dad, that as long as his dad was alive, he wasn't going to touch his son. But as soon as he was done, as soon as his father was gone, he was going to take care of the problem. He was going to get back what was rightfully his. And I wanted to get this thought across, is that there isn't that much difference between Jacob and Esau. Jacob is acting just like his brother Esau. And Esau heard that Jacob left. So Jacob actually had to leave his family because he heard that Esau was going to kill him. And so Jacob leaves for 20 years. And so Esau, in order to kind of stick it to his dad, there's like basically one rule. Don't be with Canaanite women. Don't do it. And Esau does one thing. And it says this, that Esau laid hold of Canaanite wives. He laid hold of Canaanite wives. And in my head, I'm processing this. Because I kind of put myself into the story. And I always think of myself probably higher than I should. Because I'm always like, well, I'm always the hero. And so I'm like, I'm the Jacob in this story, obviously. I'm never going to be an Esau, right? Like, I'm not going to throw away my birthright for some stew. I'm not going to try to kill somebody because they stole something from me. But then when I really examine my heart, when I really look at who I am inside, oftentimes I'm more Esau than I am Jacob. Oftentimes I'm more the guy who tries to get my self-worth not from the cross, but from you guys. And I'm wondering, I'm laying hold of something, I'm embracing something that I think is going to give me life, that's going to give me validation for who I am, and I'm trying to live this out as if I'm Esau. You see, Jacob experiences something incredible. You see, Esau embraced the Canaanite women. He embraced the world. But Jacob embraced the Father. And in Genesis 32, verses 22 through 30, you can read it on your own. He has an encounter with an angel of the Lord, with God himself, which it racks my brain how that can even be. But Jacob has an encounter with God, and he embraces God, and he says, I will not let go of you. I will lay hold of you. I will not let go. I will always lay hold of you until you bless me. And in my heart, that's what I want. But sometimes what I think and what I do don't always line up. And so many times, there's a trap that's laid for us. There's an enemy who's wanting to steal, kill, and destroy you. He wants you to be stuck in your past because of that hurt. He wants you to be consumed because of that doctor's report. He wants you to never get out of that hole because of the decisions that you've made. He wants you to always be so down on yourself because of the way that your son or daughter is acting right now. There's been a trap that's been laid for you. And somehow we think that if we can just act a certain way, or if we can accumulate enough good deeds, that's going to somehow fix the problem. You see, the enemy will always lay hold of us to try to kill us. For Jacob, it was his own brother Esau. For Esther, it was Haman. And the interesting thing is that Haman has come from the line of Esau. And it's been a battle that's been raging for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and it hasn't stopped. And it has been continually raged. And maybe the faces and the names have changed, but they're still the enemy of our soul. And so, the thought that I wanted to give you is because in Esther 3:6 it says, he learned of Mordecai's nationality. That's Haman. So he decided it was not enough to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, he looked for a way to destroy all the Jews throughout the entire empire of Xerxes. Doesn't that just sound like the enemy? Satan isn't happy enough to just destroy your life. He wants to destroy everything that you care about. And I know for me, I've grown up in church for the last 34 years. That's what I've done. But I struggled with this question. How do you know if you've laid hold of God, of the Father? How do you know if you have? So I was processing this. How do I know that I've laid hold of the Father? And I was thinking, well, I go to church. I'm like, that's not good enough because anybody can go to church. That doesn't mean you've laid hold of the Father just because you come into a building. That's like me saying, well, I've been in a garage, so I must be a car. Right? Like that doesn't work. And then, well, if I behave a certain way, if I do certain things, then I must be laying hold of God. And that can be true, but doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Because it's not just about behavior modification. That can't be the end goal. Because as I said before, our standard of good isn't good enough. So then it's not just about behaving a certain way. So how do I know if I've embraced and laid hold of the Father? And I was really struggling with this. And so I don't know if there's a perfect litmus test, but these are some questions that I want you to think about for a moment and see, have you laid hold of the Father? And so let's begin. If you are convinced that you need to abandon your righteousness and run to the merciful arms of the Lord, then you know you've embraced the Father. If you mourn the fallenness of your world rather than curse its difficulties, you know you have embraced and laid hold of the Father. If you have been freed from needing success and acclaim to feel good about yourself, then you know you've embraced the Father. If the actions of that one person, if you stopped caring about the actions of that one person, and you know that one person we're talking about, right? That one person. And you care more about their eternal destination, then you know you've embraced the Father. And I think it starts simply. There's a first step that I think all of us have taken, but it's something that we need to take daily. And some of you may know this person, but I hadn't known this person, but I've known their work. and her name was Helen Lemmel. And she wrote this song called The Heavenly Vision back in 1922. And she wrote it because she actively supported this guy named Billy Sunday, who had an evangelistic ministry. And Billy Sunday's ministry actually, eventually, Billy Graham would give his heart to Christ through a series of other people. And then the interesting thing is that Pastor Kim, our pastor, actually gave his heart to Christ at a Billy Graham crusade. And so we're actually connected to this Helen Lemmel, and that's incredible to me. And she wrote this incredible song. And many of you maybe don't know the song, The Heavenly Vision, but maybe you know the song, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. And it's interesting because Helen Lemmel wrote this because of a missionary to Algeria that wrote a tract. And this missionary was named Lilas Trotter. And Trotter was writing about the difficulty of maintaining focus while living in a world that provides us with so many choices. And so the tract said this: turn your soul's vision to Jesus and look at him. And a strange dimness will come over all that is apart from him. See, there's an article that you can, I don't know, I can't prove it. There's no other thing that says this, so I don't know if this is 100% true, but it's just an interesting, I'm going to throw something out at you. That it says that Helen Lemmel was actually married to a European man. But, and again, this is where I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but she says that that this man left her because she lost her sight. And isn't it ironic, the possibility that a blind woman would have written, turn your eyes upon Jesus? You see, I asked my wife, and she's way more spiritual and just smart than I am. And that's just true, so I'm glad you didn't laugh, because that is just a true statement. I was asking her I was kind of going over this message with her and just, hey, what do you think? And she came up with, well, the initial thought that I had was, how do you know if you've embraced the Father is the even-ifs situations. When you go to the worst possible situations, and even if this happens, yeah, but Jesus. I'm like, that's good. I'm going to steal that from you. And she goes, okay. Even if the doctor's report comes back and it's cancer, and even if it's stage 4, and even if you have a month, even if it's Jesus, even if the job is gone and there's no more money to pay the mortgage and you're about to lose the house and it's like everything's falling apart, even if it's Jesus. Even if, and you can fill in, because each one of you has a possible situation or circumstance, and you can fill it in. Even if, and when it gets to that point when it's Jesus, that's how, I believe that's one of the ways, is that when you get to the end of your rope, and you're turning not to a person, not to a place, not to a bottle, not to anything else, but you're turning to Jesus, I think then you know you've embraced the Father. Can we just sing that chorus together? And you're going to need to sing loud because I'm not a worship leader. But I feel like this is one of the steps that we need to take, is can we turn our eyes upon Jesus? Can we turn it and look at his wonderful face? And so can we sing this together, and we'll do our best. I know there's no music, but ready on the count of 3. We're going to try to sing it in key together. This is going to be a kind of chaos, but we'll try. 1, 2, 3. So, turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. That was beautiful. Good singing, church. There's this story, and we're almost done. There's a little girl who went shopping with her mom. Her name's Jenny. little 4-year-old, almost 5. She would tell you she's 4.5. She's shopping, and they come across, they're at this little dime store, and Jenny comes across these pearls in this pink foil little bag. And she goes, "Oh, Mommy, can I have these pearls?" And the mom's like, we'll see. So she turns it over, and they're $2. Honey, if you do your chores, eventually you can buy these pearls. And so Jenny's like so excited that she can eventually buy these pearls. So she goes home, empties her piggy bank, and it's $2 for these pearls. And she's like, "I'm going to be able to get these." And she empties her piggy bank, and she has 17 pennies. And so it's gonna be a while. And so she goes and does all this work, and so she's just waiting and for dinner to be over so she can do her chores. So she washes the dishes. Hey, can I take out the garbage? And she's so excited, and she gets like 50 cents. And then she goes to the next door neighbor house and, "Can I pick your dandelions?" And so they give her a quarter, and then in a few days it's her birthday, so Grandma gives her $1. And then so finally she has enough money to go and buy these pearls, and she's so excited. So she goes to the store, buys the pearls, and you cannot get these pearls off this little Jenny. She will not she wears them constantly. The only time she does not wear them is when she's going swimming, or she is in the bubble bath. Like, she will always wear them. She wears them to bed. She wears them to Sunday school. She wears them to kindergarten. She is always wearing her pearls. And so her dad, every night, would read her a story, and then he would ask Jenny, "Jenny, do you love me?" And she goes, "Oh, you know I do, Dad." And he'd say, "Well, can I have your pearls?" And she goes, "Oh, no, Daddy. These are my pearls. But you can have my stuffed animal, the one that you bought me, remember? You can have that one. That's my favorite stuffed animal." And he goes, "That's okay." And he gave her a kiss on the cheek and say good night and said a prayer over, and then he'd go and, all right. And the next night he'd do the same thing. He'd read her story, and he'd ask her, "Hey, can I have your pearls?" And he'd say, "Oh, no, Daddy, these are my pearls." And she said to him, "Oh, no, you can't have them, but you can have the doll that I got for my birthday." And he gave her a kiss on the cheek and said, "That's okay. I love you." This happened night after night after night, until one day the dad walked in and he saw Jenny sitting cross-legged on her bed and her chin just kind of quivering. And he goes, "Jenny, are you okay?" And Jenny said, "Dad," and tears start to stream down her face, "Dad, you can have my pearls. They broke." And so the dad took the pearls, put them in his pocket, and immediately pulled out a blue velvet box. And he gave it to her, and he opened it. And there was a necklace of real pearls. You see, the dad had that the entire time. And for so long, Jenny was just holding on to these imitation pearls. She was holding on to something that wasn't real. And church, I'm wondering if we've maybe held on to some things that aren't real. Like Esau, are we clinging to things in the world? Have we fallen into the trap? You see, Esau was bitter toward his brother, and because he laid hold of that, it consumed him. It consumed the hurt in his life was a thing that became his reality. And that hatred, it carried on through his family tree, through his son Amalek, and the eventually became the Amalekites and Haman. It didn't end. Because what we lay hold of isn't just something that will affect us. It can affect an entire generation. So church, I'm wondering, have you embraced Jesus today? I don't want to go through motions. I don't want to just do the thing that we've always done. We come to Sunday. I just want to take a moment. I want you to examine your own heart. And take a second. And we've got a few minutes. Because for some of us, we don't need a complete overhaul. We just need a recalibration. Get back on course. Get back on course. Because God's got something for us today. Let's not settle with imitation. So this morning, if you're far from God, I want to give you an opportunity to get right with God. If you've never made Jesus Christ the Lord of your life, today is your day. And it's simple. It's about believing that Jesus is who he says he is, that he's the Son of God, that he came and then he died and rose again, and confessing that he is Lord of your life. Admit all these things. Admit that you messed up. But for some of us in this room, maybe you're like, I know I love Jesus. The challenge then is, has he been able to lay hold? Has the Father been able to lay hold of all the different parts of us? Not just the Sunday morning version of us. Because there's some Esau in all of us that needs to be dealt with. There's, as much as I want to be a Jacob where I just wrestle with God, there's still some things where I struggle. I struggle with needing acceptance and approval from others. And I need that destroyed today. I need to care about people the way that I'm supposed to, because I don't. There are certain people that I don't like. But more than that, I need to care about where they're going to spend eternity. I need to be convinced that my righteousness isn't enough. That my good deeds aren't enough, but only Jesus is us. And so many times in life, when life gets tough, I don't mourn the fallenness of the world. I just get mad because it's affecting me and making my life harder. So church, would you just take a few moments and would you examine your heart today? And if one of those things that I mentioned, you say, you know what, I need to kill that Esau today, because if not, it's going to kill me. So church,